going to discuss a new tool that we have on the ADCA website. It's called, we call it the decision tree. And just to go on the ADCA website, you wouldn't necessarily know exactly what the decision tree is, but it's a tool to help you decide whether or not your animal can be registered with the ADCA. There's a lot of scenarios out there on the market where you can purchase an animal that somebody will tell you is registerable, and this tool is hopefully to help you look at that animal before you buy it and determine whether or not it will meet the requirements for ADCA registration. So whether or not you're buying a bull calf or a heifer calf, and then you can just follow the flow chart. If you know the parentage, maybe it's just the calf that hasn't been registered, but the parents have. If you can look at the pedigree of that animal prior to buying it, to see whether or not, yes, indeed, that animal can be registered. And also, this tool will tell you some of the genotype requirements involved for the parents of that animal. This originally came about because we had quite a few people wanting to register their animals from other registries into the ADCA, mostly PDCA animals, and a lot of them didn't quite fit the requirements because the PDCA did not require genotyping at the time of their bulls. And so, therefore, some of the dams, maybe their sires hadn't been genotyped. So it was a trickle-down effect where some of these older bulls from the other registry, their calves could not now be registered with the ADCA. So this was in an effort to help a lot of those people know whether or not, and the steps to take to get those animals into the ADCA. But then we found it's just really helpful in general because it will tell you at what ages for the parentage whether or not they have to be genotyped. And so if you just follow the diagrams down, follow the yes and no's for either a heifer calf or a bull calf, it will tell you what you need to do to register a calf and then what is required, because now it's getting, pretty soon will be the time where we'll have a fully parent verified registry, both sire and dam. So some of this in time will just drop off because everything will be genotyped and everything will be able to be verified. But at this time, because we have certain dates like bulls born after 2009 had to be genotyped, and even herd sires that were younger than that, if you're going to register an animal that's born after 2009, you have to go back and register the sire. So there's a lot of years and numbers to keep track of, and it can get a little muddy. And so this hopefully was to help everybody straighten that out if they had any questions. The genetics committee actually discussed, you're on the genetics committee, right? You discussed, you wanted this to be the buck stops here with this diagram pretty much, right?
Yes.
If an animal does not fit the diagram in that other area, then you can pretty much be certain, no, we don't need to go to the genetics committee. It's just, if it doesn't fit this form, it won't be able to be registered. And so that's going to help a lot of people too that were hoping to get animals in, and then we had to submit it to the genetics committee, and then there's a lot of discussion involved, and then a lot of time goes by. And basically, they decided this is a great tool. The buck stops here. So where you can find this tool on the ADCA website is under the registration tab. So by selecting registration tab, click on that, and then this diagram, there'll be a little link for the decision tree. And that's kind of the word I want to get out to everybody this AGM is where to find this tool, because there's a lot of information on the website, but this is directly tied in with the registration tab. And that's basically it as far as where I just wanted to tell you where to locate this tool. We've put the chondro, PHA, and the red testing down here. These are not required for registration with the ADCA, but we did put them down here because there are a lot of people that like to have that on their registration certificates, whether they're non-carriers or carriers, and a lot of that information then is arbitrary. It's up to the breeder if they want to have that included. It is not required by the ADCA. Only the genotyping is. So these other tests are down here to let you know if you want your animal to say chondro non-carrier and the parents aren't showing that online, you do need to test. If you don't know that your parents are non-carriers and those tests are not in to us, meaning when you look at them online and if it doesn't show they're non-carriers, if you don't know the parents are non-carriers, you either have to let us know the parents are non-carriers, maybe you have some old tests in the file and, oh yeah, I forgot to send that in, which is the majority of the case. A lot of people will send in their registration certificate and it will say non-carrier for PHA or chondro. But when I look at the parents don't show if they are or they aren't. And so then I have to contact you and say, well, are the parents tested? If so, send in the test, or did you test this calf? Send me the test. And people don't send me any of the testing. It's an assumption that the labs send me everything. They do not. All I get is once a week I get a spreadsheet with a little number of owner, the animal's name, ear tag, the parents, and then if it's been genotype on file or sire qualified or sire and dam qualified. That's all I get. I don't even get your actual report or your genotype report. So if you know you have paid for testing, make sure you send it to me so we can put it on your animal file. And so then everything else that you register after that will show up as a non-carrier or carrier. A lot of people like chondro carriers. And so that's good to put on there too. So that's basically it. I just wanted to let you guys know that this tool is out there for you to use. Should you come across animals that you think, maybe somebody just decided they didn't want to register them, but they could be registered, or some older folks that are selling off their herd and you want to pick up where they left off on their paperwork, this will tell you what you have to do to make these animals acceptable for the ADCA. And hopefully it's self-explanatory, but then I'm always here by email, not here physically in Salina all the time. I'm around, and you all know I work till the cows come home. But you can contact me anytime if you have a question, or your regional director, one back there, and they can help you too. So, because we want to try to answer your questions as soon as possible, because we know a lot of you are just sitting there working on your paperwork, and trying to get it in the computer and send it off, and if you're like, oh shoot, I have a question, we want to be there to help you as quickly as possible, because nobody wants to put their stuff away and set it aside and wait 4 days for an answer. So we try to get back to you right away if you have a question. But hopefully, this little diagram, the decision tree, it's called the decision tree, which you can find under the registration tab, will help answer the majority of the questions. Does anybody have any questions? No? It's just a lot to really look at, and maybe just by looking at it won't help you now, but there will be a day when you're like, oh, what's that thing? Oh yeah, the decision tree. I got to decide if I can register that animal. And it's right with the registration tab.
Jill, do we have a written form of this as well, right? That's not in bubble form?
It's also
written
written
in the same
out.
place?
It's in the same place.
Because some people, myself included, don't really do well with the bubble decision tree. I like to have it written out.
Yep.
And there is one that's written out. It's just the requirements for registration, and it doesn't do the bubble tree. It just has everything written out so you can read it. That's on the website as well.
We do have multiple formats for different types of
learning styles.
And someday I'll make a video and go,
yeah,
but so far I'm not that person. But I just want everybody to know that, but this is the one that you won't go to a genetics committee unless it's something that is really sitting on the border.
One thing catches my eye.
Yeah.
It says, in an ADCA approved registry. What other registries are approved?
The PDCA.
The PDCA.
The Dexter Cattle Society. Well, it depends on whether it's American or non-American. But yeah, the other American registry is the PDCA.
Okay.